French microplastic contaminated wine, beer, soft drink, and water in glass beverage containers. Particles, the microplastics, were identical in color and composition to the beverage cap and or the outer paint on the glass containers. Scientists baffled. I'm adding that last part in because that's what this is called. The meme of scientists baffled is that you present a story to make people think or feel that they are smart by saying scientists can't figure out something, when it's some sort of heavily biased coalition of French wine cork makers trying to make a point. So let's get this done. Don't paint the glass bottles and the cap, instead of cork, the cap, until it's filled. Yeah, that was a 1-minute explanation. Let's get on with it. The study acknowledges that it was literally just the caps causing most of the problems. Let's review. Find a plastic bottle with a screw cap, specifically. Find a glass container with a screw cap. Doesn't matter what's in it, just get one. Also get it, and the screw cap can be a plastic cap entirely or a metal crown that screws on and off. As you screw the cap on, because it has to be put on, sometimes they're pressed crimped, which is preferred, but sometimes they're pressed crimped and rotated. As it's put on, a glass bottle's mouth on a microscopic level is slightly abrasive and is almost perfect for making microplastics. The plastic bottles, on the other hand, start off as little test tube shaped, what are called baby bottles or baby soda bottles, that are below form inflated to the right size. The glass ones are also kind of an inflation and or molding process, but the point is the mouths are made smooth enough. The requirements, legal requirements in most countries, is that you don't have to make the glass bottles have a perfectly smooth surface on the mouth. If you have a cork being put in, any micro whatever, whether it's micro cork or plastic, will be on the outside of it because it's scraped off as it goes in if it's not perfectly smoothed. Duh. The next thing is that if you have press-on caps that are crimped, it may not be as much of a problem. The other thing is you can use extremely high conformity, squishy gasket seals, which is what you have in them, and the cap makes no real contact and it just presses the seal down. One of the methods for making this not a problem is to have the seal applied first by an applique and then the cap is put on. It never makes any spin contact until the cap goes all the way down. At that point, it is only a rotation of from here to here. Why does Wabtec know about this? Because I took an entire course in college as a side project. I would audit classes as a hobby. I took a class in packaging. I actually know how to do this shit. I know how to build the equipment and even service it at one time. Depends on what you have now. Obviously, I'm not going to be knowing exactly what you have at whatever place you have. So let's discuss it. They found that the places that had the least amount of contamination simply rinsed and blew out every single container and every single cap. And the lowest measured amount, when you look up another study, was places that don't paint anything. Don't paint the caps. Don't paint the bottles. It's glass. You can etch the glass with a pattern that has no effect on its recyclability, or no pattern at all can be put on it, and it's sold in a plain bottle. And these are wine bottles in most cases. But the idea is that glass bottles are worse. The plastic industry is perfectly fine. Or it could be some wine cork manufacturers getting mad that plastics are anywhere near it. Now here's the problem with all of this. Virtually every part of your environment has microplastics in it. These are forever compounds and materials. Plastics, as famous in the scene in one movie, The Future is Plastics. That was about the point when everybody should realize, yeah, this is going to be everywhere. Plastics, if you're not aware of it, don't biodegrade well at all. There are now new, exciting things like bacteria that likes eating every form of plastic. Wait till the rot happens. There's an actual sci-fi story called The Rot, or The Decay. I forgot which name it is. It's in another language. It's very Bulgarian. I think it's Bulgarian. But anyway, this was in France. You know, the wine industry where they flip the fuck out about the fact that metal caps existed, or metal cap covers that went over the corks. Some people were angry about that. There should never be anything touching this except the cork. But anyway, what are the levels? The worst offender was beer. Though actually worse than that was actually short, stocky containers. But anyway, beer. Why beer? These were short beers. Small amount of fluid to absorb the same amount of microplastics. Almost double the amount in lemonade, which was in a larger container. What's up with lemonade? But anyway, that was 83 units of contamination. I'm not going to describe what the numbers are. You can go look it up. I don't care. 45 for lemonade, 31 for cola, 28 for tea, 8 for wine, which is normally in a fairly large container, and water containers, go look up what people buy in France for containing water, larger water ones. It was 3. That's a ridiculous amount for beer, lemonade, all of it. But wine was one of the lowest. Is this friendly to the wine industry? Yeah, and even better if you're a cork fiend. Or you could sell wine with a normal cap on it in a plastic bottle because it's actually safer. When they make the plastic bottles, they heat them up. They hang onto the neck of them. They're, again, test tube shape, and it expands to whatever shape you want. They're universal. So when they make them, they can put them onto what looks like a lathe, spin them, and expose them to heat, which flame heat polishes them, and they go completely smooth. This makes it to where turning a cap on and off has almost no effect on it. And they also have almost always a floating seal that rotates with it, so there's almost no possibility for microplastics getting in. And the amount of microplastics would be the same for a small volume versus a large volume. So if you're doing it based on particles per volume, it's going to be lower the larger the container is. So if you deliberately test, the nearly half-gallon goddamn, 2-liter bottle goddamn things, it's going to be a lower amount than a beer container that's like this. Look up French beers. Now, this is the other part of it. This is badly translated from French or not. Plastic, glass, can, what kind of can? Cubitainer, and the word brick is used in this. Brick container? I'm kind of wondering what that is. Can't be a reference that's bad for what? So, the next thing. What's your microplastic level in the feedstock, the water? If you're making beer or you're making wine, how much microplastics are in the drums? Because they didn't mention that. Oh, there was a scandal about that because it's French. Lemonade. The lemons have microplastics in them because they're drawn up through the body of the tree. Teas, they're leaves. Leaves contain a lot of the cast-off material from a plant growing. The only thing more extreme would be the roots. If you eat carrots, they're going to have microplastics because they fully envelop the microplastics. There are even some types of plants you can plant in ground that will pull plastics into them to the point that if you burn the plant material, especially if it's dehydrated, it will produce a nasty smell that stinks of plastics. We're La Brea tar pitting ourselves as a species. But no, humans can't have an effect on the environment. I love how people at one moment will say, only God can blah, blah, blah. And then they bitch about microplastics because we caused it. And then they bitch about our effect on the electromagnetic spectrum and blah, blah, blah. Everybody is extremely selective in their outrage when it comes to how much crap we're doing to ourselves and this planet. Because they don't want it to affect them, or some false god they worship in human form, whether it's in the White House, the Kremlin, or just a large corporation. All of us need to stop bowing down before these people. But anyway, is this actual study, is this actually anything about the glass bottles having higher microplastic problems? They blame the caps, but it's the process of putting the caps on. Grindy. It's the process of them painting the bottles glass and shipping them from point A to point B, which makes them rub against each other, and then the particles get into the air inside of the container. And even if you wash them out, they're still there. Rinsing it out is not as good as just not getting it dirty in the first place. And the caps having the branding put on it. It's all about salesmanship. It's all about artwork on the outside. That's what it's about. It's not what's in the container. It's how nice the Evian bottle looks. Some places have experimented with having hyper recyclability. That means the plastic and glass bottles have nothing on them. Nothing. Their only marking is one that's put around it on, this weird high-tech solution, a paper label that's easily removed because you put it in cold water and scrape it off, and then you just have paper that biodegrades, and the glass and the plastic are sent back to be recycled fully. That means the plastic is flushed out on the inside with water, emptied out, blasted with air to knock all the stuff loose, heated up to evaporate anything out of it, left upside down so it's pointing mouth down, so that it can be tested to see if it has any contamination. It's assumed to be contaminated until cleaned, and then they just reload it. Like they do the glass bottles, you have no problem this being done to. But they can just melt down the plastic and the glass if they just deliberately pick hyper-recyclable materials. The plastic's fully recyclable, clear plastic, chemically marked, everything. And then it goes into a container, and it just turns it into squishy sausage and then presses it into the shape of the little mini test tubey things and reinflates them. It's not an infinite process, but as it happens over and over again, it hardens the plastic and creates orientations that make it slightly less useful for that and more useful for making literal plastic wood out of. Now, do we want these microplastics in the environment? No. Are they already there? Yes. Can we filter them out? If you want to plant the right kind of plants and wait a long time and not make any more plastic, yeah, otherwise we're screwed. Next, switching to glass bottles that are ridiculous, that are literally hyper recyclable, would solve this, right? No, you'd have to get rid of every plastic on the planet. Plastic fibers in your clothing break off in microscopic little sections and turn into microplastics. Microplastics involve anything less than 1 or 2 millimeters across. Did you know that? It's not micro anything. It's milli-plastic. Brick. So anyway, yeah, the particles are identical in color and composition to beverage caps, the material they're made out of, the seals, whatever, and or the outer paint. And again, to avoid this with glass containers, use a plain cap with nothing painted on it, and don't paint the outside until it's fully filled, and then run it through a process where you inkjet print it on or put it on with a silk screening process after you've loaded them, and you won't have any contamination at all. Or just have it integrated into the glass when you make it, and then remake it later for another company by melting it down and making new. Or just use paper labels. Is it really that hard? Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And yes, this is a rage bait article someone created out of a science article that basically talked about the fact that the French beverage industry hasn't had a really good review of its behavior until now, apparently. They cited some number of years. You can read it below. It ends up with the extension CHIBE JFCA 2025 PDF. And it's archived. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. You'll need it.